Hi folks, I've recently finished reading Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. I'll just show you the cover here. Got it on the Kindle. It's on sale this month in the United Kingdom for £1, which how could I resist? I am a bit of a late adopter of Arthur C. Clarke. Of course I've always heard of him right back from childhood when I would have watched Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World on television. And of course I've seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, the movie. In high school I remember seeing at least one of his books in the school library, which was Rendezvous with Rama. But for some reason I never got around to reading it, even though it's a pretty short book as I recall. So Childhood's End is the second book by Arthur C. Clarke that I've ever read. The first one is 2001. Which I read around September last year. I guess he's most well known for 2001, but is that his best novel? Well, if I can just make a comparison between that one and Childhood's End, I would say Childhood's End is streets ahead of 2001. But I gotta say, I didn't really think 2001 was maybe quite as good as everyone makes it out to be. Particularly the whole thing with the HAL 9000 computer developing a conscience and feeling guilty and kind of going crazy, all that stuff. I can kind of accept computer consciousness in hokey science fiction like Star Wars with the droids and everything. I can even accept it with the likes of the Terminator, with Skynet becoming conscious and being evil. But Arthur C. Clarke writes hard SF, hard science fiction, as in grounded in real science as much as possible. And I just can't wrap my head around the idea of conscious computers that are genuinely conscious in a feeling way. No, my own background in computers is what brings that out in me. There's a big discussion I should have on this channel at some point about the whole idea of strong AI. I don't think it's possible, but we'll save that for another time. So 2001, that was the first thing I didn't like about it, but I did really like the whole deep space atmosphere, how isolated the main character is. It's so well described. You're really drawn into the action and the predicament of the character and what he's going through. The ending of 2001, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's very abstract. It's very weird in terms of consciousness and ideas about God. And I think it kind of falls down because it's just not grounded in reality or in anything that's even likely to be real. So yeah, 2008, maybe not that great. Childhood's End is for the most part way more down to earth. For a start, it doesn't really take place in space, at least not much. It's a first contact story. And it takes place on Earth. And it's our first contact with an alien race. And it begins in a way that will be very familiar to anyone who has seen V, the television series from the 1980s. And the remake, I suppose, but less said about the remake the better. It starts very much like V, with the arrival of these gigantic alien spacecraft that hover soundlessly, or maybe not so soundlessly, I can't remember. Maybe they hum, I can't remember. But they're over all the principal cities on the planet, and they're just there. And everybody's like, oh, what the hell? So it's just like V, right? V, of course, gets into territory where these aliens look like us apparently, but oh no, we discover they're actually wearing a human disguise and they're reptilians. And essentially, I hope you don't mind, I'll give some spoilers about V, but not about Childhood's End, because this is a review of Childhood's End. I'll keep spoilers to a minimum. In V, the aliens aren't so friendly in the end, in the final assessment, and they're here to steal our water and bring it back to their home planet. right? So the same question arises in Childhood's End. Are the aliens friend or foe? Now what's different about it initially is we don't get to see the aliens. They only communicate with us vocally. And the book is told, the first part of the book is told from the perspective of a human who has been elected to be a kind of emissary between the aliens and the humans. And he gets brought up into the giant ship on a little shuttlecraft type thing, where all he gets to see of the creatures is nothing. It's just a blank screen. And he gets to talk to their leader. Karelin is the leader's name. And he's basically the political emissary between us and them. Now, the thing that happens is we instantly know, well, pretty much instantly, that we're no match for them, right? As you would expect, somebody somewhere tries firing off a nuclear warhead at one of the ships, and the ship just basically goes, and the thing just disappears. So, and this is what's interesting, is that we know instantly, like, if these aliens are hostile, there's not even going to be a war. It's like game over from the moment they arrive. Which is why I think this is so much better than things like Independence Day, where the ships arrive, but we sort of think, yeah, we're in with a chance here. You know what, if it ever happens in real life, if aliens ever really do arrive in this fashion, in these gigantic big motherships, just kneel before them, just put the white flag in the air. It's no contest, So we're all just kind of hoping that these aliens are benevolent. And they seem to be. And they initiate a golden age among humanity. Because basically what would really happen among us with all our petty squabbles and all our little mini wars? What would happen with us if we were faced with interstellar visitors like this, who are so much more advanced than us? It would unite the human race. So it does. It unites us. And through their guidance, we learn to be better than what we were. And it brings about a golden age. But there's still that sneaking suspicion, why won't they show their faces? We're not allowed to see what they look like. And why are they really here? It's like there's no such thing as a free lunch, as it were. So people are still suspicious even though nothing has happened. So book one, and I say book one rather than part one, the whole book is divided into 3 books. And I'm glad it's called books rather than parts, because although this may be just, splitting hairs here over semantics, the first book really is concerned with this one character, this emissary, and his desire to find out what they actually look like. When book 2 begins, more time has passed, several more decades have passed. He's dead and gone, I think, and we pick things up with another character and a different cast of characters, and that's book 2. So in book 2, we finally do find out what they look like, and I'll not spoil that. You probably know, because the TV series has been out. I haven't watched it, but you've probably caught a glimpse of what the aliens look like. In case you haven't, I won't spoil it. But it's quite fun, and the reason why they hid their identity makes sense. So book 2 delves further into the question of why are they here? And there's a curious aside in there about the aliens taking an interest in our parapsychology research, in the literature that has been written by us on parapsychology, as in ESP and psychokinesis and stuff like that, and theories of extended consciousness and whatnot. Stuff that interests me, right? So that was curious, and I thought, that's going to be relevant later. I don't know why, but it's going to be relevant later. And sure enough, it was. I won't get into why the aliens are there, but suffice it to say, you'd never guess. I won't tell you whether they really are friend or foe, but you're never going to guess why. It's a really good reason. It's really interesting. It's not a standard reason, like we're here to take over your planet. It's nothing like that. It's a really interesting reason. And it fills book 3 full of really interesting things. I would say book 3 drags a bit in comparison to the other 2 books, and it gets pretty esoteric and weird. Like 2001 got kind of esoteric and weird, and again I think that's part of the reason maybe why it's not as good as the earlier parts of the book, which are more grounded in reality. But it still was really interesting. And thinking of the title of the book, Childhood's End, it's talking about the childhood of the human race. The idea that we are like adolescents. We are immature. We're not handling the planet or our own lives with any sort of adult viewpoint. So they're here seemingly to help us along. So what does the adulthood of the human race look like when we get past our childhood? That's sort of why the book is titled Childhood's End. But it's not going to be anything like you imagine, put it that way. It certainly wasn't like anything I could imagine. And initially I wasn't all that satisfied with how it all works out, but on reflection I kind of like it. I would give this book a solid 4 out of 5. Yeah. Definitely beats 2001: A Space Odyssey. And it was written much earlier. It's one of Arthur C. Clarke's earliest works. I think it was written in the early 1950s, 53 or something like that it was published. So golden age sci-fi, and it really holds up well. There are, of course, things in it that are a little kind of funny, that are like one of the aliens wants to learn about parapsychology, like I told you, and he has to visit the library of this collector of strange occult and parapsychological books, because that's the only place he can find all these books, and the guy doesn't want to loan them out because they're so valuable. So the alien has to come down and actually physically read the books here on the planet. And all I could think was, nobody back then in the 1950s could have predicted something like the Amazon Kindle or the ebook or the internet. And the aliens can't just go on to BitTorrent and download 1,000 parapsychology texts like I could. So it's kind of funny thinking back to the 1950s. No one could have predicted the shape of technology, really. Only in certain respects, but it's just kind of funny. If you wrote Childhood's End now, you'd have to take into account the fact that the internet is a thing and electronic transmission of media is a thing. So that's kind of interesting. But it doesn't detract from the fact that it's still a really great book. And I quite like the antiquated feel of golden age sci-fi, where we were always sending men up into space using rockets, and rockets that could go to other planets and land vertically, like we've never done that for real. But that's the only way we conceptualized spaceflight in those early pieces of fiction from before the space age, So that's Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. Highly recommended. Before I go, I want to show off a new t-shirt that I'm wearing. Who's this, you might wonder? Well, it's William Shatner. True fans of the movie will know why I said that. This was sent to me by my good friend Mech, who lives in the United States. Thank you very much, Meg, for clothing me. I do like it a lot. And so it's goodbye from me and goodbye from Mike.
The sky